All right, everybody, if you are MAGA, if you are a Trump supporter, if you've been along the ride here since 2016, I have very few guests that I don't have to introduce you to, and this is definitely one of them. Miss Trump, Lara Trump, before she got on Fox News, she was obviously the RNC chairman or co-RNC chairman to help get President Trump elected. Prior to that, she was obviously in his support circle, being married to Eric Trump, and now she's got a podcast and a television show. Without further ado, Miss Trump, how are you? Can you hear me?
Hey, I can hear you. I'm awesome. Thank you so much. Great to be with you.
Thank you very, very much for coming on. I understand you have such a busy schedule. And first and foremost, congratulations on the new Fox show. Are you doing Right View and My View at the same time? I mean, how are you doing two shows?
Yeah, that's the Right View right behind me. And I also have My View. So My View is on 9 p.m. Saturday nights on Fox News. And the Right View, you can go to laratrump.com to find, obviously, to click in and watch. You watch anywhere you get podcasts, of course. But that's 3 days a week, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And we air each episode at 8 p.m. on all those days. So, yeah, I've been a little busy. But you know what? It's all good stuff. That's the best part of it. We love talking about it.
And I understand the show is a hit on Fox, and no one deserves it more as much as you. This must seem like a vacation, having a television show after doing everything with the campaign. So tell me how that came about, and like who are you getting on as guests, and what you plan on doing with these guests.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. Look, certainly the past year of my life was insane. Nothing has ever happened to me like what happened in the past year. This about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, or over a year ago, actually, I took over as co-chair of the RNC alongside Michael Whatley, as you just referenced. And we both understood the monumental task in front of us, that this was the most important election of our lifetime. And there was a big, very steep hill to climb. There were a lot of people in this country who weren't sure that we had a free, fair, and transparent electoral process. They felt like, do I even bother going out and voting after seeing the results of the 2020 election? And so we had to ensure that indeed we had a free, fair election in 2024. And so Michael Whatley and I worked incredibly hard at that. We put together the most robust, largest election integrity operation in the history of not just the country, but the entire world. We had volunteers and attorneys everywhere. There was voting happening every time a ballot was cast and counted. We had people in the room, eyes on every single thing. And we sent out messaging that said, if you're a person who intends to cheat in an election, we will find you, we'll track you down, and we'll prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. That, coupled with everything else we had going on, obviously getting out the vote, obviously a great team at the RNC and the Trump campaign that worked alongside of us, and obviously the result on November 5th was incredible. We were all blown away, all 7 swing states. Donald Trump just absolutely dominated, and the American people made their voices heard loud and clear. So after that, I was trying to figure out, what do I want to do? I took the role of co-chair sort of reluctantly, to be very honest with you. My father-in-law asked me to consider running for it. And I was kind of hesitant because I said, I don't know that I want to be in this position during this very critical election. That's a lot of pressure. And so I told him I would do it throughout this election, and then I was going to resign as in my role as co-chair, which I did. Mm-hmm. And then Fox came to me right about a time that I was considering possibly looking at the Senate seat that Marco Rubio vacated right here in my home state of Florida. And it all kind of happened in an amazing way. And I just felt like this was the right path for my 2 young kids who are 5 and 7. And I've been so blessed. I've been loving doing the show at Fox. We've had incredible guests. Our first show highlighted some of the amazing women that Donald Trump put in these positions of power. Caroline Leavitt, who is an absolute boss. Pam Bondi, who obviously is the Attorney General, and Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. This weekend, though, Barry, hold on to your hats because Dana White is coming on. And we're talking about the FBI being trained by UFC fighters, as well as that amazing dinner, the dinner that everybody was talking about between Donald Trump, Kid Rock, Dana White, and of all people, Bill Maher. So he talks all about it. It's going to be on this Saturday on Fox.
That should be very interesting hearing what Bill Maher, who is an icon for the left, he goes into Mar-a-Lago, or the White House rather, and he meets with him. And then he comes back, and all of a sudden, just like they always do, the left immediately turns on people. You're supposed to be toxic. You're not supposed to be touched. No one's supposed to ever give Trump the time of day. And he finds out, well, he puts his pants on one leg at a time like everybody else. He's not a bad guy. And I don't think people understand. If they knew him from before he became a politician, they would understand this guy was vivacious. He was fun to be around. He was in movies. Why did that? How did that completely shift, even from the people who knew him?
Well, I think it's probably because he knew them all too well.
Yeah.
Donald Trump has never been dishonest about the reality of all of the things. The tax code, he says, I used it in my favor. I did what every other, billionaire out there does. Every other millionaire out there does. I used all of this in my favor. And that's what smart people do. But he also knew who all these people were. He knew the truth about a lot of them. And he understood the game that was played because don't forget, Donald Trump, before he came down that golden escalator in 2015 to announce his run as a Republican, donated to all politicians. He donated to Democrats. Mm-hmm. Bill and Hillary Clinton were at Donald Trump and Melania Trump's wedding. Don't forget that. So he understood the game. And I think what they knew with Donald Trump is he needed none of it. He was the one person who never needed the job of president of the United States. He has lost so much of his net worth taking on that position. But because he didn't need it, because he didn't need any of them, and because he understood the game so well, that threatened a lot of the deep state. That threatened a lot of what people call the swamp. And the swamp is very real in Washington, D.C. Don't kid yourself. And so when you have a person who doesn't need anything from the establishment politicians, he doesn't need anything from the lobbyists, the special interest groups, has never taken a dime from any of them, then that's a person that you can't control. And a person you can't control could stand to expose a lot about the system that is working against a lot of America, but is working for those people who keep that job in perpetuity in Washington, D.C. And I think that's why so many of them said, we can't have this guy there. And take a look around. Take a look at what he's exposed already. Look at Doge. Look at all of it, Barry. It's amazing.
Speaking from like a personal standpoint, your last name is Trump. You're married to Eric. Donald is there. The kids are very much in the forefront. People see them at the different events. On July 13th, I think it was a little bit over 300,000 people were watching that rally in Butler. And I watched the emotion turn from completely being terrified to seeing elation and ready to just inspiration after he got up. And then the emotion turned from all of that to total anger at what we were seeing. That's us on the outside. How did the people whose last name is Trump, I can't imagine what you guys went through. I mean, I don't know if you were there or not, but I couldn't imagine waiting by the phone. Is he okay? Is he going to be okay? Can we get him out of there? Can you describe just some of the emotion the inner circle was going through? Because nobody seems to ever talk about that.
Yeah, we weren't there, but we were watching on TV. And actually, I was, kind of preparing dinner for my kids. We had the rally on in the background, and it's funny because just moments before this all took place, my daughter turned around and she looked at the TV. It was kind of behind the kids. The kids were sitting at the counter. My daughter turned around and looked at the TV, and she goes, "Oh, Mom, look, Grandpa's on TV." And I looked up, and I was actually peeling a carrot when all this happened. And I remember I was peeling the carrot, and I looked up, and I all of a sudden didn't see him. And I knew immediately something was wrong. Something had happened. And then I saw, obviously, the Secret Service rush on stage. My husband was in the other room watching, and he started calling me to come in there. I instinctually knew, this is wrong. So I changed the channel because I did not want my children to ever see anything, God forbid, that they shouldn't have with their grandpa on TV or anyone, quite frankly. And I, went in the other room with my husband, and we started making calls. We called all the people we knew were there with him on the ground. We couldn't get a straight answer for quite some time. You kind of have a feeling whenever people are kind of not giving you the full picture. no one was able to give us the full picture at that time. And it felt like an eternity until finally, about 45 minutes to an hour later, we got a call from my father-in-law.
Wow.
And that was, he wanted to call all of us and let us know he was okay. And, you know, for an hour, I held that carrot and the vegetable peeler in my hands, and I didn't even realize it because I was honestly in like a state of shock. It's horrible that we ever saw anything like that happen to anyone in America, any presidential candidate. But when it's a family member, it definitely hits differently. And the hardest part, I think, for me was trying to explain to my kids, who I knew were going to go to summer camp back again starting on Monday, what people were going to be talking about, what happened to Grandpa, and to try to explain to a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old that someone tried to do something to hurt Grandpa was one of the tougher conversations I've certainly ever had to have.
You know, just how you related that is something I don't think a lot of people in the news even take the time to discuss. You're cooking dinner. You're a wife. You're a mom, and you're doing the things that everyday people do every single day, and then you got to deal with all this crap at the same time. So I completely salute the entire family, because I could not even imagine not being able to get a hold of my loved one for 45 minutes, and the fact that he's a presidential candidate, they probably swamped down, they cut communications and basically put him into a cave until they could figure out what was going on. So I commend all of you, and it makes me sick to my stomach when I see the people on CNN and MSNBC acting like, you know, it was no big deal, and it pretty much went into radio silence, and then it almost happens again on the golf course. And I'm never going to ask you this because I wouldn't expect an answer, but you guys must have to go through more security, more trepidation than any family in the world. How do you deal with that kind of stress on a daily basis, always wondering, are you going to get this phone call?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not normal. And Barry, I grew up like probably most people in America. I didn't start out with the last name Trump. You know, I've had it for 10 and a half years now. I've been part of this family. I've known my husband and my father-in-law for 16 years, but I didn't start out like this. And so it's been a lot for me personally, I think, to try to get used to this whole thing. It would have been enough just to get a famous last name, but all coupled with it, yeah, it's certainly different. Look, I am a faithful person. So is my husband. And I believe that God has a plan for everything. Yeah. I believe that God had a plan in 2020. I believe that we needed the 4 years between 2020 and 2024 to open people's eyes, to give really Donald Trump the best chance possible to save this country. I don't think he would have been nearly as effective or successful if he had been a 2-term president back to back. Right. I think that was necessary, and I think that was divine timing. I also believe that God was there with him in that field in Butler, Pennsylvania that day. Oh, yeah. I believe he was with him that day on the golf course with the Secret Service agent who spotted this guy in the bushes waiting at the golf course. And so, I mean, you know, there's this space, of course, in everybody's mind where it can get dark and you can get really wrapped up in it and go down this crazy hole where you think about this sort of stuff constantly. But I just really believe that God has put Donald Trump on this planet for this time. He was made for such a time as this. This country needs him. The world needs him. And so for me, I think that I consistently turn to God. I pray all the time. You know, people come up to us everywhere we go, Barry, and they say, we're praying for your father-in-law. And I can't tell you how much that means to us as a family. I've heard it time and time again. It will never get old. I am so grateful every single time someone says that to me. And so I believe that God is protecting him. I believe that there are dark, evil forces out there who are working against him, but nothing is more powerful than Almighty God. And I have faith, and I'm going to continue to operate that way.
And he's incredibly strong, and he has surrounded himself with strong people. You mentioned it earlier, but it just cracked me up when I think it was Mark Cuban who said he surrounded himself with women who weren't strong and were stupid. I'm like, wait a minute, Lara Trump, Caroline Leavitt, Susie Wiles. How did your inner circle and the people that you guys network with? How did you even? You must have laughed. It might have been humor for you, but it just seems though there's been even more women. Adding Christy Nome and Pam Bondi, and it's just funny at this point that some of the most powerful women in the country right now are in this administration. So how did they react when they heard it and how you heard it?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, bless his heart is what we say about Mark Cuban. It's totally ridiculous. And I think it's amazing because, look, Donald Trump has never seen people based on their gender. He's never seen people based on their sexual orientation, based on their race or religion. Donald Trump has seen people based on success and failure. That's how he's judged people, and that's how he's sort of kept people around him his entire life. And so I think the amazing thing is to see, as you point out, with this administration in particular, Donald Trump as president of the United States, you have women like Pam Bondi, who is Attorney General. That is a traditionally male-dominated space. You have Susie Wiles, who is the first female to ever hold the title of White House Chief of Staff. You have Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence, Caroline Leavitt, who is the youngest person to ever hold the role of White House Press Secretary. You have all of these women around Donald Trump who he has asked to do these jobs. You mentioned Kristi Noem, Department of Homeland Security. That is probably, arguably, the biggest role in the entire country, because most people came out and voted based on the fact that they wanted our border secured. And it's amazing because he's never even acknowledged it. He never comes out and says, oh, I chose these people for this position because they're women. Much different than Joe Biden, who, if you remember, said the only requirement he had for his vice president was that it was a woman and a minority woman. Those were the requirements. Forget the merit. All these women who surround Donald Trump, all these women he's put in these powerful positions, earned every inch of it. They did not have to, they weren't even considered based on the fact that they were female. They were considered based on the fact that they're the best ones for the job. And leave it to Donald Trump, of all people, Mark Cuban, I hope you're watching, to put them in those spots.
It's so funny. I don't know if you're even allowed to say this, but I have to ask this question because I know how I am with Ashley, my daughter, and my grandkids, and my wife. Although you're not running the RNC anymore and you're doing a talk show on Fox, does the president look to, as he's closed ranks, because it's completely different than it was before in the last presidency. He now seems to have a very close inner circle that he relies on. How much does he speak to, obviously, his sons and you and Tiffany? Does he, and Barron and Melania? Is that the first cabinet, and then the other cabinet comes after that? Because I just wonder, because I just know if I had a decision to make, I'm going to talk to Robin and I'm going to talk to Ashley, and then I may go see my lawyer or something. So I wonder if there's a pre-cabinet before there's a U.S. cabinet.
Yeah, well, look, you have to have people around who aren't just going to be yes people, right? You have to have people around you who are going to tell you the truth. And I think he knows that if he needs the truth about anything, he can come to those of us in the family. Because, look, we'll be very honest with him. I am very honest with him in terms of what I think. And that's the thing about Donald Trump that a lot of people don't realize. And if you haven't spent much time around him, you don't know this. But those of us who have will tell you, he seeks out the not just advice, but he wants to hear what people think about every different subject. Whether you have a background in that or not, he'll say, well, what do you think about it? Because he likes to get commentary from everyone. He's the ultimate decision maker. He will, in the end, of course, be the one who actually decides what path to take, how to operate, what things to do. But he does want to seek out the counsel, advice, and thoughts of anyone with whom he surrounds himself. And I will say that the people he has in the White House right now, you're right to say it's very different. It is very different than the first term in office. These are all people who are there to work on behalf of the people of this country. They're not there to sell stories. They're not there to stab him in the back. They're not there, to kind of throw him off course or any of that stuff, which was happening the first term in the White House. But yeah, we talked to him a lot. And almost every time we talk to him, he wants to know what we think about certain things going on. And I'm always happy to give him my thoughts on anything. He always knows he can call any of us at any hour, which he also does. He will call you at 12 a.m. He will call you at 6 a.m. This is a man who needs very little sleep. And he's always thinking, he's always working, he's always thinking about what else he can do for this country. And so, yeah, maybe sometimes we're the first inner circle that he has, but we're certainly the ones that before any of this and after it's all over, we'll always be there for him. He knows that. He knows he can rely on us. And most importantly, he knows whether it's something that he wants to hear or not, we're going to be honest with him about all of it.
When he went to the Daytona 500, that was your daughter that was with him, right? That,
Yeah, that was our daughter, Carolina. The funny thing is Eric and I were there, and our son Luke was there. But Carolina wanted to go out with him. And so he said, okay, come on out. You can come out with me. And it was the cutest thing I've ever seen.
It was.
I mean, here's the thing about kids. Kids and animals can sense something about a person, right? And you can't fake it. Like if kids do not like someone, they're not going to go with them. My kids can't get enough of him, and she was so excited to be out there.
That's one of the things you hear silence in the media, because exactly, dogs and kids gravitate to people that they like. And one of the cutest pictures, in addition to what your daughter did, was when he was walking out to the helicopter with little X. And I'm like,
it's so good.
I'm like, look at this. That was simply amazing. And it was amazing to me on two fronts. One, the X felt comfortable enough to leave his dad and go run with President Trump. And I'm like, you guys are looking at this wrong. It's not a monster. He's not in the closet. This is a guy who kids gravitate to. And so, you guys do anything for Easter?
Well, I think we're going to celebrate as a family. We usually have a nice event down at Mar-a-Lago that we'll usually go to. And then I think we may go. There's a very famous Easter egg roll at the White House. So we're thinking about taking the kids to that. Yeah. It's very cool to have that opportunity once again. So maybe you'll see us up there.
All right. So I got one last question for you. And I'm going to pull out a crystal ball that nobody has, but they have this imaginary crystal ball. And that crystal ball is, right now, Miss Trump is doing his show on Fox News, and hopefully she'll be bigger than Hannity and have her own show. Or under door number 2, if I was Monty Hall, is there a political run in your future? I mean, I'm here in South Florida, and I'm in Boca. Are you that? Where are you at?
I'm just north of you. I'm about an hour north of you in Jupiter.
Oh, Jupiter. Okay, I used to live in Jupiter. And so I'm thinking, Pam Bondi, and she's up there in the cabinet now, and Ashley Moody took Rubio's spot. But just wondering, is now that you're actually here and your residence is here, is there a run in your future?
Well, it's funny because had you asked me that question in 2015, before any of this ever started, I would have said, no, that's absolutely insane. But it's been sort of incredible to see there's some real nasty parts of politics. Mm-hmm. It can be awful, it can be dirty, it can be just horrific. But there's also something really beautiful about it, and something that I certainly enjoyed while I was RNC co-chair. And so, as I said, I considered the seat that ultimately Ashley Moody ended up taking, and she's doing a great job there. Mm-hmm. We're so proud of her and proud that she's representing Florida as one of our senators. But I would never say never to anything. I could have never imagined this life that I currently have. And I honestly just follow the path that God puts in front of me. I pray about decisions. I follow my heart. I follow my gut. I've tried to just do that my entire life, and it's led me some pretty amazing places. Yeah. So I'm going to continue to do that, and I've been loving the show at Fox. I've been really enjoying doing that. But you know what? I would never say never to anything, and I think Donald Trump, of all people, showed the world that anything is possible. That anyone could come out of nowhere and do something that everybody said was not possible, and so. I would never say never. You never know what could happen. All
right, so we'll keep watching for that.
Take it as a big maybe.
Do you film down here, or do you have to go to New York every week?
I travel to wherever the people are who I'm interviewing because I want to sit down with them. I have a studio down here, but I also go up to New York quite a bit. So I'm all over the place. I got a lot of miles going.
So you have Dana White this weekend, correct? That's what you're saying?
I have Dana White. Colby Covington is going to do a little FBI training with me.
Oh wow!
UFC training. Yeah. So it's going to be good. Everybody's going to like it.
Wait a second. So you're actually going to get in the ring with Colby?
Yes. I'm getting in with Colby.
Well, it's funny because so many people have asked in the chat before, like, what's her fitness routine? And I'm like, okay, she's going to go fight MMA, so I don't think y'all ready for it yet, all right? So,
all right. I'm ready for anything. Yeah, throw it my way and I'll give it a shot.
You are, of course you are. I'm talking about people like, what's her fitness routine? Like, she's got videos on Instagram and stuff. Go check it out before you try to get to that level. Well, Laura, thank you very, very much for taking out of your time out of a busy day. We'll be watching the show, and you can expect, I don't know how often you have a chance to check your X messages, but I'm pretty sure you're going to get a bunch of people following you and commenting you, and I thank you for your time. Hope to have you back, and we'll be watching Dana White this weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Good to be with you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, everybody, that was, as you saw, Laura Trump, and I'll be right back.